As of this year, I have officially made $1 million as a content creator. That is my cumulative profit over the past 5 or so years that I've been doing this full time. For the sake of financial transparency and because I know that my younger self would have found a video like this so helpful, today I'm gonna dive into the specifics of how I made that money and what I've been doing with it. We'll break down my income streams and how I balance my long-term savings and investment goals, with also spending some money on myself. I feel like this goes without saying, but maybe it doesn't, so I'll say it anyway. I truly never believed that I would have a business this successful or make this much money. I come from a rural blue-collar background, and this kind of thing is like beyond my wildest dreams as a kid. I talk about this more later on in the video, but really I did not think this was possible for me. And honestly, it wouldn't be if it wasn't for your support. So I just wanted to take a quick second to say thank you. If you've ever taken the time to watch one of my videos, leave a comment, like, or if you've ever clicked on one of my affiliate links, bought something for one of my brand deals, or worked with my video editing agency, truly thank you so much. You've given me the opportunity to have this as my dream job, and I am really so grateful. This is the work that I've always wanted to do, and I'm so happy to be doing it, and now it's my mission to help other creators follow their dreams as well and turn it into a sustainable business. So yeah, before we get into more money talk, I just wanted to say really and truly thank you. I honestly don't really see a lot of people going into this level of detail about content creator finances, so I'm hoping that you'll find my situation to be a useful example, or at least you'll take away some of the money lessons that I'm going to share that I had to learn the hard way. Okay, so I want to start by showing you in detail how I made all this money, and then we'll talk about where it all went. If we're going to talk about business finances, we need to understand the flow of money through a business. So we're going to start by talking about revenue. And then obviously there are some expenses. So we subtract our expenses and that gets us our profit. Now, that's not entirely what I get to keep, right? Because we have to pay our taxes. And then finally, when you subtract those taxes, you get what I can take home. And then I want to tell you about how I divide up this money between my investments, paying off my mortgage, and some left over for myself. So we'll get into that. So to put it all together, let's talk numbers for a second. Over the past 5 years, my total revenue was $2,066,842. Once again, we're talking Canadian dollars because I'm from Canada, as I do in all of my videos, unless specified. Okay, my overall expenses were $989,172, which means our profit was $1,085,875. There you go. As advertised. So that's how we end up after 5 years at a profit just over $1 million. If you are curious about what my business expenses look like, I've gone in depth with that in my past financial breakdowns. So you can watch this video up here if you want more detail on that. But today we're going to focus on the revenue, how I generated it, and then what I did with the profit. All right, so first let's answer, where did all this money come from? The short answer is basically freelance work, which eventually grew into my agency and being a YouTuber. The long answer though requires that we look at some graphs, and I do love graphs. So the first income stream that I established was my freelance services. You might not know this, but I actually started out as a freelance videographer. So right after I graduated university in 2018, I started filming weddings, real estate tour videos, promotional videos for local businesses that went on Facebook. Basically, if you would pay me to film it, I would show up with my camera. Okay, within reason. Now, back in 2019 when I started, this made up the vast majority of my income. I had a tiny slice here of AdSense, and this blue is from literally one brand deal. Now, my total revenue that year was $33,985, and I think like 23,000 of that, 23,000 of that was from my freelance work. Now, in 2020, my freelance work grew, and that income stream alone earned me $84,000 that year. I started my very first experimentation with digital products. That's this little green strip, which honestly, back in 2020, my digital product was just basically consulting services. I would provide audits of people's social media strategies and do like online consults with them. So it wasn't really scalable, but it was technically a digital product, but it's kind of a service as a product. Also, you can see my YouTube AdSense really increased that year because this was kind of the year that my YouTube channel really started to grow in earnest. I made $24,000 in AdSense that year, which brought me to a total of $127,645 in 2020. The following years of 2021 and 2022 honestly weren't all that different, at least in the proportion of each income stream, but we do see a slow and steady increase to $230,000 and then $264,000 in overall revenue these 2 years. 2023 was a really transformational year in my business. You can see, of course, brand deals made a massive jump here. In 2022, I made about $63,000 in brand deals, and in 2023, that number was $209,000 and some change, which obviously accounted for most of the growth that we see here. Though I will say shout out to my digital product sales, that also became more significant from year to year, and I really started making some affiliate income at this point. Honestly, through all of these years, I never really thought of affiliate sales as like a worthwhile pursuit. I just felt like it would be such a small trickle that I didn't put a lot of effort into it. And to be fair, in these early years when I had a smaller audience, I don't know how worthwhile it would have been. But at this point in 2023, my audience had grown to a point and I was talking about like gear enough that it made sense to really invest in getting my affiliate strategy set up, and it definitely did start to pay off. Okay, so in 2023, that year, my total revenue was $564,000. And just as a reminder here, we're talking about calendar years. In some of my financial videos, I talk about my business revenue in terms of fiscal years because my corporation's fiscal year doesn't quite line up with the calendar year. So if you've seen me talk about different numbers with regards to these years, it's because I'm either talking about fiscal year or calendar year. So for calendar year 2023, $564,000 was the total revenue. Finally, in 2024, we see a continuation of the same story that started in 2023. You can see most of my income streams here holded steady or increased a little bit, with actually the exception of services, which I wanted to take a second to talk about a little bit, because I think often when creators or entrepreneurs tell the story of their business growth, it always just looks like this, like a line straight up. But the truth is, things ebb and flow. To be honest with you, I'm expecting that my bar in 2025 is not going to be as tall as my 2024 bar overall here, and like that's okay. So yeah, I did just want to mention that services dipped a little bit in 2024, and that is because we made a huge pivot in our service offerings in like the second half of 2024 at Creatorly. Up until this point, we were doing pretty much everything under the sun when it comes to social media marketing, and it was a lot of admin to manage that wide a variety of services. So we decided to focus in on what we're most passionate about, which is long form YouTube editing. And obviously, as with any major shift in a business, that's going to switch up your client base. And so we're currently working on kind of reestablishing from there. All of that is to say, don't stress, don't feel guilty if you ever see a bar go down 1 year to the next. It's very normal. That is life. But 2024 resulted in $610,000 in overall revenue. So hopefully this graph here explains a bit of the story of how my business grew and in what areas, and how my focus changed over time. I really think any successful creator business is going to depend on a variety of income streams so that you can ride out the fluctuations a little bit better. When you're growing a content creator business like mine, organization is key. There are so many moving pieces and it can get really overwhelming to try to balance all the different priorities that you have. That's why I'm excited to share about today's video sponsor, Dropbox. Dropbox will keep you and your team organized and stress-free throughout the entire creative process. You can share your files, even really large ones, effortlessly. With Dropbox Transfer, you can send up to 250 gigabytes with just one link. No Dropbox account needed. And when it comes to sharing content with your team, you can sync files across devices quickly, so you're never dealing with outdated versions, and you can access your work on the go. Another feature that I love is you can protect your content with watermarking, no download links, and password protected sharing. So you can make sure you always have control over how your content is used and by whom. When it comes to finding all these files that you've stored, Dropbox Dash makes it easy. Dash is Dropbox's new AI-powered tool for quickly finding and organizing content across all of your work apps. Universal Search lets you look for files, messages, and even voice notes so you can find anything even if you're not sure what it's called. Whether it's a recent brand campaign or a photo shoot you did in a certain city, describe what you're looking for and Dash surfaces what you need. Dash learns how you work and suggests the right content as you type, so you spend less time searching and more time creating. You can try it today and see how Dropbox can help your team create faster. Click my link in the description to check it out. And once again, thanks to Dropbox for sponsoring today's video. Okay, so I've told you where the money came from. Now we're going to talk about where the money went. So you already know from the intro that a little under half of my total revenue went towards paying for expenses. To be specific, about 47% went to expenses, leaving my business with an average profit margin of 53%. And just a quick note on that, for a lot of content creator or influencer businesses, their profit margin is probably going to be a lot higher, but mine is like that because I've incorporated the whole services like video editing agency into that. Because obviously paying other people to do editing for my clients, that's a really big expense. Whereas filming my own like videos that I get paid to do brand deals in, a lot lower overhead, right? So that 53% profit margin, that's incorporating kind of both sides of my business. Okay, so with expenses out of the way, let's talk about what I've done with the million or so dollars that my business has profited over the past 5 years. There's pretty much 3 main categories we need to address: taxes, keeping it in the business, or paying it to myself personally. So let's just start with the obvious one, taxes. Over the past 5 years I've been in business, I've paid a total of $162,635 in taxes. This figure includes both my corporate income tax and my personal income tax. Just for simplicity here, I've rolled it all into one. From 2019 up until halfway through 2022, I was a sole proprietor, which meant that my business income was my personal income. Like there's no separation there. And obviously I wasn't paying corporate tax at that time. I incorporated my business halfway through 2022, but you can see at that point, I started having a different personal income from my business's profit, and I was paying both personal and corporate tax. Also, I pay myself in dividends, not wages, which means that what I pay myself here is not deducted from my profit when it comes to paying corporate tax. But if you want a full breakdown on that, I talked about it in detail in this video that I'll link up here, so you can watch that later. Okay, so with the remaining $923-ish thousand, we're gonna split that up between keeping it in the business and paying it to myself personally. Because I am the 100% sole owner of my business, in practice, there's really not a big difference between these two things. However, they do have very different tax implications. Because any money that I pay to myself personally, I do have to pay personal income tax on. So keeping it in my business is just kind of a way of deferring paying that personal income tax to sometime in the future when I actually need to use the funds personally. Let me explain it a little further. You can kind of picture it this way, okay? Your business is here and you are here. 2 separate entities, right? Now, money is streaming towards your business in the form of profit, okay? And corporate taxes is like a little butterfly net that's going to catch some of that. Now, what makes it past the net and ends up in your business, you can either keep it here inside your little shop, or you can pass it along to yourself personally. Now, the reason you'd want to do that is so that you can put it in your personal, savings account, or use it for your own personal use that you don't have to justify as a business expense, right? Because obviously not everything is. However, if you do want to pass a bit of your profit on from your business to yourself, then the little butterfly net known as personal income tax is going to come into play. Anytime you pay yourself money from your business to yourself, you are going to have to pay personal income tax on it. But the thing is, the more money you throw over to yourself, the more that can get caught up in the butterfly net. That's how marginal tax rate works. If you keep it inside your business though, you can hold it there until some future point when you will give yourself smaller payments of money, which means a smaller percentage will end up getting caught up in the butterfly net. Basically what I'm saying is I'm keeping some money inside of my business essentially as retirement savings that I'm gonna pay out to myself when I'm making less or no money at all. And so I'm kind of spreading out the income tax that I'm gonna pay over many years into the future instead of paying it all to myself personally now and paying all this money in tax now. I say this all just to explain the logic of keeping some money in your business's name and giving yourself small disbursements over time personally. And for the record, I am very happy to pay taxes. I'm not one of those internet people who's trying to move someplace with like 0% income tax because I want to try to keep it all for myself. In fact, I think it's a privilege to be able to contribute to social programs that help our society. My only complaint is that I'd love to see more of this money go towards our universal healthcare and public education systems, okay? Let's just say I'm a big fan of going to the hospital and not going bankrupt over it. I don't begrudge this little butterfly net, okay? I do just think though, as a business owner, it's important to understand how all of these systems work and approach it in a strategic manner. Okay, so hopefully that explains the logic behind why you don't just pay yourself your business's entire profit when you're incorporated. When you're a sole proprietor, those things are not different, as it wasn't for me back in like 2019 up until 2022. But yeah, so that's why I separate these two things. Let's talk about the roughly $450,000 that I've kept inside my business, the biggest chunk of which is my corporate investments for a total of $340,000. This is money that is still under my business name, but it's invested in EFTs basically. I am not an investment expert by any means, and I do have a financial advisor to help me with this stuff. But what I can say is when I'm talking about investing, I don't mean individual stocks. I'm a YouTuber, okay, not a day trader. Basically, I'm invested in EFTs, which is like a basket of many different stocks. Generally though, when it comes to these EFTs, I'm prioritizing low MERs or management expense ratios, basically what it costs you to be invested in it. And I'm okay with like moderate risk. I would say I have a moderate risk tolerance because of the long time horizon on these funds. This is basically my retirement money. I don't plan to retire for a long time still. And so it's okay if it goes up and down, with the idea being in the long term, it'll grow more than being in a more conservative kind of risk tolerance. So that's about the extent of investment advice I can share with you. Otherwise, I would say talk with a professional financial advisor, as long as you're clear on how much it costs you. Make sure you look at those MERs. Okay, so the rest of the money that I've kept in my business, but I don't have invested, is this light blue slice here, which is basically my cash on hand, about $116,000. Look, is this too much money to keep in a checking account? Absolutely, and I'm working on it, okay? I procrastinate this too much, but I am gonna be transferring more of this over to here. However, I do like to keep a decent cash flow in my business because it's a big priority of mine that even if our clients pay late or don't pay at all, I still want to be able to pay the team at Creatorly. So I like to keep a little extra money on hand for that reason, though obviously like I could get this out if I needed to. It would just be bad if it was at an unideal time in like, you know, the fluctuation of the stock market. So I do like to keep some cash on hand so that I can always, you know, pay people on time. Okay, now let's talk about the $466,000 remaining that I have paid out to myself personally. The first slice of my personal money is money that I have invested. That is a total of $94,662. This money is in my TFSA and RRSP, which are tax advantaged accounts here in Canada. Everybody gets them and the government sets the rules on how much you can contribute each year. Though, as a quick nerdy aside, the RRSP is not as helpful for me because I pay myself in dividends, and dividend income does not increase your RRSP contribution room, and putting money in my RRSP does not decrease the amount of income tax that I have to pay on dividends. So I don't contribute as much to that, but I definitely use my TFSA, which stands for tax-free savings account. So yeah, your RSP and your TFSA are basically like buckets that hold that money, but then you need to invest the money that's in there. And basically this is invested the same way that this is. It's just in my name personally rather than in my corporation's name. The next slice of the money that I paid to myself was the about $175,000 that I contributed to paying off my mortgage early. If you want to see all of the details of how we paid off the mortgage on our little condo in just about 5 years, you can watch the video. I'll link it up here. I went into depth on that and also discussed whether or not it's actually a good financial strategy. So if you're curious about that, you can watch that next. Okay, and finally, the last remaining slice was the $197,230 that just went to me. That works out to roughly $40,000 a year that went towards basically my lifestyle, household expenses, travel, and some donations. And just as a quick reminder, I am part of a 2-income household, so like that $40K a year was not supporting both me and my husband, like he has an income too. But yeah, that's about how much money I kind of kept for my own use that wasn't mortgage payoff or investments. What a beautiful chart. I'm at a point now where I'm pretty confident with my money management strategies, but I certainly did not always feel that way. One of the main things I've learned along this journey is that financial success is somewhat within your control and somewhat not. I know a lot of business guru types on YouTube want to make it sound like if you just have this one key secret, then you can become a millionaire overnight. And I really do not believe in that. But in the past, I also used to think that having a business as successful as mine now would be equivalent to like winning the lottery, meaning that it's basically impossible and something that I had no control over whatsoever. And that is kind of true, right? Like you can't just go from $0 a year in profit to $300K a year in profit overnight. That isn't really something that is in your control. But what I learned along the way was going from like $0 a month in profit to $2,500 a month in profit was something that felt within my control, and I knew I could take concrete steps to get there. So maybe it sounds cheesy, but I really believe that the journey to building a business that can generate $1 million in profit is a one step at a time process. Maybe you find having a really big future goal in the back of your mind to be motivating, but I feel like you can't focus on that long term every single day. You've got to break it down into smaller chunks and focus on the small progress. You just need to focus on finding that next client, securing that next brand deal, or making that next YouTube video. And on the time scale of 5 years, you can see a massive transformation, but you're not going to see that overnight. Now that I'm here though, I definitely don't have everything figured out. Right now, what I'm struggling with is trying to find the balance between the like make hay while the sun shines mentality and with trying to make this feel sustainable and like something that I can keep up for many years to come. When things are good, when lots of brands are hitting me up in my inbox, when lots of clients are coming our way, I feel this really, really strong temptation to just take on every single opportunity that's presented to me because I feel like they might not come again. This might be my only chance. Sometime in the future, the brand deals might dry up and then I'll really regret turning the ones down in the past. And I'll be honest with you, that mentality is basically the approach that I've taken to my business, at least over the first 4 years that I was doing this. And I have to admit that I think that is kind of what has led to the success that I'm seeing. But the paradox is if I just grind while I have the chance, take every opportunity that comes my way, I probably will burn out and basically guarantee that I won't be able to take any opportunities in the future because I'll have quit. I'll have just been too burnt out and exhausted to even continue. So then I think, okay, I need to take things a little bit slower and turn down some opportunities, even if that means making a little bit less money right now in favor of being able to do this for longer, which will hopefully lead to more opportunities in the future that I'll actually have the energy to be able to take on. Because if I do it all now, I just know I'm not gonna have it in me, 2-3 years from now. Which basically leads me to sometimes making hay while the sun shines and taking on the extra work and grinding a bit, and sometimes resting while the sun shines and having the optimistic belief that the sun will shine again tomorrow. And because I rested, I will have the energy to make hay then. Hopefully you follow my farming metaphors. To put it another way, basically what I realized is I know I can go at 110%. And I spent 2019 to 2024 going 110% basically all the time. I almost never took any time off. I posted a video every single week and I took on every single opportunity that I thought would help grow my business. But I just know I can't do that forever. Like another 2 years of going at 110% and I would probably be burnt out on YouTube for good. So starting in 2025, I decided I wanted to try going at like maybe 80% and see if I could keep that pace going for another, maybe 5 to 10 years. We'll see. However long the YouTube algorithm gods give me. And who knows what I'll do next after that? Maybe a career change, maybe start a whole new business, maybe just keep on doing YouTube because I really love it. I have no idea what the future will hold, but for now, I really enjoy doing this work, connecting with you all, sharing what I've learned, and I want to try to maintain my own mental health so that I can continue doing this for as long as I can. If you enjoyed this video and you want to see more personal and business finance content from me, you can check out these 2 videos that I've picked out that I think you would like as well. And if you want to see me talk more about money and like work-life balance or whatever, let me know in the comments. I always love hearing from you. And yeah, just thanks so much for watching. I really, really appreciate it. And I hope that you're having adventures and following your dreams, and I'll catch you in the next video. Bye.